Are you ready to explore the unknown? Dive into the world of the strange, mysterious, and unexplained with Eerie Expeditions magazine. Each issue is packed with spine-tingling tales, cutting-edge paranormal investigations, and exclusive insights into hauntings, cryptids, UFOs, and more. Whether you're a seasoned investigator or just love a good ghost story, Eerie Expeditions magazine has something for you. Join our growing community of truth seekers and adventure lovers. Subscribe today at EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com and unlock the secrets of the supernatural. Are you ready? That's EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com, where the extraordinary is just a click away. Dare to discover.
Welcome to the Gateway, broadcasting live from the edge of the Mojave, where the strange slips through the cracks. We are live on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM. I'm your host this evening, C.L. Thomas. Tonight's guest is my friend over at GhostBox Radio, Greg Bakun. He's coming back on, and we're just going to have an open discussion about current events and paranormal, and we're going to talk about what's going on in Greg's world, and probably a little bit about what's going on in my world. I'm also going to be on his show tonight, too, at 8 p.m. Pacific time, so stay tuned for that. I'll send the link. It's going to be on my Facebook page, so come join us over there. But before we get into all of that tonight, in tonight's discussion, you've been listening to John Kelly with Into the Night right here on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM. And I just want to give out a shout of thank you to Joe Montaldo with Public Radio Network 107 down in New Orleans. Thank you so much for the opportunity for letting me have this show every Tuesday here with you guys. It's currently 56 degrees here in the valley. The weather forecast does say 63, but you have to remember I'm up in the highlands, so my thermostat says 56. We're always about 10 degrees difference where I'm at. I took over a trip this weekend up into the mountains and to do a little investigation at this location. It's an old ghost mining ranch, and there's a spring way up in the mountains. It's about 6,000 feet. And wow, guys, I got a lot of activity in this one little itty bitty cabin. So I am going to post my findings and some of the evidence that came out of it. But the location itself is really interesting. I'm going to write extensively about it. I've done some research since I've been home. And the story started in 1840s, and it was a Native American guy who, his name was Chief Wakera. And he had a whole little tribe with him, and they were all kind of like renegades, and they would hide along the Spanish Trail and ambush people. They would kill them, steal their belongings. They would pillage everything, and then they would go hide out in the mountains at this location that I was at over the weekend. So you can imagine all of these Native American guys that probably just killed a bunch of people on wagons that just wanted to get across the West, and they're sitting around with all their pillaging and horses and all that up there drinking. That's kind of the scenario up there. It's really interesting. But what they were doing was they would kill everybody, take their horses particularly, and then they would run up into the mountains to this location that I'm talking about. And the closest laws would have been this little place called Pahrump. And Pahrump at the time was a very small place. They only had like one sheriff who was doing the entire county. So he was doing like Pahrump, he was doing Las Vegas, and a couple of like Searchlight, a couple other locations. So that's a really big span, right? He couldn't catch this Native American band that was doing this. So what they were doing was on the Nevada side, they were stealing the horses, running them up into this camp way up in the mountains, hiding out. And then they would go back down to the trail in California and resell those horses. And then when those people were come up around the pass, they would do it all over again. Yeah. So you see where I'm coming from with that. It's really interesting. I could talk for hours about that location, but for my guest, I won't do that. Tonight is open chat, so I hope you guys brought your questions. You can talk about anything you want to tonight. We are going to get into paranormal news and Greg's world, so let's get him on here. Greg, welcome to the show.
Hi, CL. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Okay. So I'm just going to start us off. I'm going to get the spicy out of the way right now because it's kind of eating me away. I had an incident where I posted that I was going to be on your show, and out of the woodwork, this person she didn't block me, but she unfriended me and started writing snide remarks on the comments because of a particular group logo that was on your ad for the show. Mm-hmm. But I think what she failed to understand is that just because I'm on your show doesn't mean I'm supporting, I think it's Get Haunted. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean I'm supporting this particular group because I don't really like this group either. But I don't know, it just opens it just kind of rubs me wrong because I'm guilty of this too, where, if you're associated with some of the people that I don't like, I stopped attending Paracons. Maybe that's not the way to go, Greg.
It's hard. It's a hard thing. First of all, I want to say to your friend, thank you actually for reading the art, because I don't know if anyone has ever read my art that I put out for the show. So that alone is like next level, Unfortunately, it's someone who didn't like Get Haunted, so they're just like, oh, well, we're done with that. It's the person taking the higher ground, who, it's so easy to say this without actually feeling it by being like, well, we got to let go of our anger and we got to let go of our dislike or hatred or whatever. But as someone who's been on that side as well within the paranormal field, that's easier said than done. I'd be an absolute hypocrite to be like, well, you know what? She needs to get over this. You and the Paracons, you need to get over this. Me and what's happened to me in this situation, I need to get over. That's easier said than done. So it's like, I get it. But I think what I feel really bad about in this situation is all you're doing is you're accepting being on my show. That was the main thing. You're just like, yes, Greg, I'm gonna take up your invite. I'm gonna be on your show. And you're not when you accepted it, my guess is you're not thinking about where I'm broadcasting it out.
I didn't even know that you were still on Get Haunted's stuff. To be honest with you, I thought that was already.
Yeah, well, done. and so it's I'm still on there, and that's not what you're thinking of when you're deciding to take part in it. You're thinking about, Greg asked me to be on his show, I'm going to be on his show.
Exactly.
And so to in my opinion, to make you the fall person for just accepting my invite, I think that's, I feel like that really shows what they really, in my opinion, what they really thought about your friendship, I guess. If they're going to be able to be like, yeah, we're done just because of that, just because of an image being posted on your page. I think that's more of a reflection of them rather than you, in my opinion.
I get it though. I do get it because there's a lot of bullying associated with this individual. She was a victim of a lot of bullying that went down. I was bullied too by some of the people in this group that's associated with that particular group. But, I moved past it, that sort of thing. So I get where she's coming from. But at the same time, it's kind of like it comes to a point where you can be anti-bullying so much to where if you have to police everybody else's material, you become the bully in a sense.
I think so. And also, I got to say, without getting too deep into the whole Get Haunted side, but I do have to say, in my, I think I've been there for about 2 years. First of all, no one's ever bullied me there. I'm certainly aware of it, right? And I'm aware that that's something that that I feel like has always been like that. There's certain people that have that they know that it has happened there as well. The thing is, like there was a situation that I had a couple friends at the time. They were friends, and they were also part of Get Haunted, and they had a falling out with them, and they thought that Get Haunted was bullying them. They weren't, and I can honestly say they weren't, because I was there at the time. And this person very, very famously said on her Facebook page, "If you are part of Get Haunted, unfriend me now." And so I did. Like, your wish is my command. And her daughter did not say that, but the thing is that I just thought, well, I gotta unfriend her too. We're not close friends anyway. I gotta unfriend her anyway, because I don't want to be blamed as like if they start saying, well, somebody is still spying on us, stuff like that. You see that happening. Like, we're just gonna do a clean break, and they're all over there thinking that Get Haunted is saying all these things about them, and everything that I was a part of with Get Haunted at the time had nothing to do with them at all. They were never brought up. All we got was that these two people are no longer a part of the network, and that's it. And I bring that up because I don't know about I've heard about stuff that happened before I joined Get Haunted, but to be honest, I have not seen any of that personally as long as I've been there, if that makes sense. And I'm not trying to take away from your friend who is really upset about that, because trust me, that stuff runs deep. And I told you before the show about someone who I used to date who was in this field. I don't know where she is now, and I don't really care. But I saw her do lives with somebody else who I was sort of friends with, but he knew my situation. And I reached out to him. I'm like, why are you doing lives with her when you keep saying you're good friends with me, and you know what happened in this situation? And he's just didn't really, he just kind of blew it all off. And you start to make those decisions of like, well, who are the important people in our lives? And I cut that cord, because I can't scroll through and see this person in my feed. I can't do it. It's too hurtful and it's too much. So, it's like you said, I could see it both ways. You can't.
And that very well could be where she's coming from, and I totally understand that too. I do.
It could be a trigger. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if I saw this person I'm talking about in my feed, it actually gives me anxiety. It makes my heart jump. The hurt is, I've moved on quite a bit, to be perfectly honest. It doesn't sound like it, but I really have. And, but I mean, it's just like, still though, if I were to see this person, I'd just be like, oh, what? I've tried to get away. And that's just what happens, and it's, I wish that wasn't the case for me. And I'm she probably wishes that wasn't the case for her, but those, if you get hurt, it runs very deep. And I think you probably have felt that with the Paracons that you've walked away from too, because you've been friends with a lot of those people.
There's a couple of people that's really hurt me pretty bad in this field.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I could totally relate. And that's why I walked away from a lot of the Paracons and things.
Yeah. And that's and it starts to become for me, I've you and I've talked about this. I mean, my focus I think now is going to be mainly Minnesota based, because I mean, I did have aspirations of like, I'd love to be around the different states in the country and do different Paracons, and maybe and I'll be very honest, make some kind of name for myself in this. And it's just like, you just constantly run into the same type of people. There's some amazing people, but when I'm going to be going to a Paracon that has like 120 or 130 vendors, it's hard for me to have. I feel like it's hard for me to have a voice, and I have a right to decide that I don't want to be a part of that either. Some of these become so much of a money gain. I hope I'm not I hope I'm not taking over too much of the conversation.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Because I wanted to quickly say I was at a Paracon in Wabasha, Minnesota 2 weeks ago, and there was no ego there. There was maybe about 10 groups there, and everyone got along. Everybody was in good spirit, no pun intended. And we just had a really fun time. And that was a great reminder of how this should be. And, it just is like, maybe, like I said, maybe I'm just meant to kind of stick around Minnesota mainly if I want to have a table or something, because everywhere else it just isn't quite the same.
I'm going to get to the comments real quick. And Deb and Dave, they say, we personally would never let ourselves be a part of something that watches what we do and screens what I am part of. Yeah. And
so Deb is a great friend, and she is on my show, at least 3 times a month. And I've been really, I've kind of really watched how they operate in terms of how I should operate, because I've had nothing but respect from them. They've treated me very well. I've done a number of their shows, and they also don't take crap from anybody. They know their self-worth. They know that, and it's not in an egotistical sort of way. They just know how to maintain what they're doing, and they will, just move away from the stuff that's causing drama. And so I've been kind of watching what they do, trying to hope that I can replicate it in some way for what I do, because I think they have the right idea personally.
Deb and Dave, I'm going to look you guys up and see what you're doing.
Refined Divine Psychic.com is what their site is, and they're good people. They're really good. I'm
definitely gonna, I stepped away from the paranormal for probably a good month. I've been pretty quiet over here, and I've been doing a lot of ghost town hunting and finding crystals and things like that. But I completely stepped back and just kind of regrouped to try to heal some of the stuff that's going on. And I really thought about what is happening with this community in the first place. Mm-hmm. And you're exactly, like, I think you hit it on the head. And actually I was just watching another para show with Timothy Shaw.
Oh yeah.
Black Cat Lounge. I really like him a lot.
Over on Para X, yeah.
Yep. And he had John Zaffis on recently.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about the state of the paranormal right now. And what's happening is Tim Shaw said, hey, look, there's a couple of celebrities out there starving right now. Do you think, like, how much of that is spilling over into the events and the money grabs and the way people are in this field right now?
Did John answer the question at all?
He did. And he was very much in agreement. I was going to actually steal the clip and play it tonight, but I didn't get a chance to go and get it. It was on maybe last week.
Okay, I'm going to have to check that out, because
it was last Tuesday.
And you and I have had this conversation so many times, and it never gets old because it always continues. That it does feel in some cases, and nothing is ever for everything, but it feels like in some cases, people who have been on TV, they really want to try to stay relevant, or to continue the lifestyle that they've become accustomed to. And so you see them trying to find different ways to do that. Now, that probably sounds like that people shouldn't be allowed to reinvent themselves, whatever. I'm not saying that, but at the same time, is this a good choice, or are you just milking fans because you know that people are going to just buy into anything you say? And I think there is some of that out there as well. And I've been, I constantly just kind of shake my head. And I said in a post somewhere, because someone's asking about, with, was it the Missouri Paracon that's been canceled?
Yes.
And people are like, well, why do we think that is? And my response was, if I were an alien coming down to Earth and I decided I wanted to check out a Paracon, like I'm a alien that's in the paranormal, right? And I come down to Earth and I want to check out a Paracon, and I'm looking to see what's out there. I would say that just by looking at the different events, that there must only be about 10 people who are in the paranormal, and that they're all over the country constantly doing the same thing. And that's, and I disclude authors on that because they always have something new. But when you're talking to, and I'm sorry, like, I can only imagine like a couple of those guys from the Tennessee Wraith Chasers who are doing events every weekend, what are they going to talk about, and I can't imagine that you're getting a whole lot of incredible stuff to talk about at events. Right. As a paranormal investigator who does events as well, I feel like that those are the ones where you're just kind of hoping something happens because you want to give people a good experience, but it's not a paranormal investigation.
Yeah. A lot of times, though, I've been to quite a bit of those now with these different celebrities and listened to their talks. First of all, they don't even put together a talk. It's more of they just stand up there with a beer and talk about their TV show and how great that's the gist of it with probably at least 10 of these guys.
Yeah. There was one we worked with for Parafriends events that we had a couple of times worked with, and the second time so many of the same stories were told, and it was just like, you've been doing this for 30 years. Why there's only 5 stories? And that's kind of just, I think that's what it kind of comes down to. And I don't know. I just feel like that there is there's a bit of stagnant to it all as well. Yeah.
And the other flip side too is that there's only so much in the paranormal you can talk about unless you're out there experiencing the field. If you're not doing that, of course you're not going to have stories. But I feel like everybody's telling the same thing. Like at Christmas, for instance, you didn't hear squat about Krampus 2 years ago. Now all of a sudden there was a movie, that's all you hear about at Christmas time. I'm kind of sick and tired of hearing about Krampus.
It's funny that you say it because and for my show, when I do my radio show, I'm very much I'm absolutely Tracy. I had Tracy on just a week or so ago talking about Tombstone, and it was a fantastic conversation. But when you get generally I don't have paranormal teams on my show because it's no offense to them, it's all the same type of like stuff, and I have a hard time believing, and I say that with a caveat, but I have a hard time believing a lot of their stories, mainly because I wasn't there, and I'm very difficult when it comes, I'm a skeptic in a lot of ways, and I also understand when I tell a story, I've told my story about seeing Bigfoot so many times, and I see people's eyes roll behind their heads, so it's kind of the same on either side, and that's totally fine. But the whole thing about getting and hearing the same stories and same sort of thing, and it's like, that's not really that doesn't really do it for me. And I think you really got it when you're like, you got to experience it, not hear the stories, but experience it to really understand it.
And I don't mean, go out, like Tracy said, the fees are so high on these events. You're absolutely right. Stop paying $400 or $500 entry fees to some of these ghost investigations, because what's going to happen is you'll have the celebrity up there talking about himself for a good portion of the time. Then you'll have his little clique people all around him. So, quite frankly, you're not going to talk to that celebrity very much anyway. And then on top of that, you're going to sit in a room. I kid you not. The event's going to be, you hear him talk, or her, whoever it is, and then you sit in a room in a circle while they're playing like a GhostBox or Necro-Friendly, one of those, phone apps through a speaker, and you're just sitting in a circle. You're really not experiencing the paranormal.
When you're doing an event with a celebrity, and even if the celebrity is trying to, because I've been in certain situations where the person on the show is trying to get other people involved. All they want to do is they want to see that person work. So you're not going to investigate. I remember, I think a year ago last February, that I had tickets. Dustin Perry was in town because he was doing the road show. and he was doing and he was at the Fitzgerald Theater in St. Paul, Minnesota. So myself and a few people went out there. We got tickets, and it was 2 hours or so of just like, this isn't cutting it for me. I expect better from you. You know, I really do. And at the end, he played some evidence, and I turned to my friend and I'm like, I got better evidence my first year doing this. You know, I mean, this is like, you're on Ghost Hunters. Is this really the best you can do? You know, I mean, it was a very lackluster, and I don't want to say it's a money grab, but I really kind of wonder a little bit. I mean, people were leaving. So if people are listening and you're big Dustin fans, and you're like, how dare you talk about him this way? People were leaving because there was a first half, there was an intermission, and a second half. In the second half, people were leaving in droves, and I'm not kidding. They were just not interested. They were bored, and by the time he got to the evidence, you know, it just is stuff that isn't. It was just very much like this. You just expect more from someone who is, you know, been doing this so long, and we hold these TV people to such high, you know, high standards that is like, that's nothing. That was nothing. So
I gotta give it. I didn't really know who Dustin was, to be honest with you. I had no clue. And it's because he hasn't been on TV in like 10 years or something. I mean, it's been, if you asked any of the younger people, like you and I, we know who ghost hunters are, that kind of thing. But the younger people, these YouTubers that are really into the paranormal, they don't know who he is. They don't know who John Zaffis is. They don't know any of these old school people that's been on TV the last 10 years. They have no clue. They don't care to know. All they care about is they know who Cody is, the younger guy on YouTube.
Yep.
And you know, they know who some of these YouTubers are, but that's where this is going. You know, so at what point do we not change directions a little bit? And you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think the direction change is hard because that's certain people. And
I agree, Mike.
Very much so. I first met Mike. I don't know if Mike remembers me. I met Mike at that ridiculously crappy Las Vegas Paracon that I have to mention. It's like it's in my karmic contract that if anyone associated with that, I have to bring it up and remind people how stupid and horrible it was.
Oh, that was my first take on a Paracon too. Believe it or not, it was my first one ever, and I was just like, "Really?"
I mean, people lost lots of money.
Garbage.
It was. I mean, that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, that guy still owes me like over $100 because I had VIP tickets.
Yeah, he owes me about $250. He owes like Aaron Sanger like, you know, $15,000 or something like that. I mean, he owes a lot of people, and yet he still is putting on events because he's from Minnesota.
Really? I don't even know who this guy is.
Minnesota. And I mean, and yet he's still putting on like not events like that, but he's still like, if it were me, I would just go into hiding forever. You know, I mean, if you're pissing off celebrities and that's what you're trying to make money off of is them, you're kind of doing it. You kind of have a crappy business model, I would say. It's really bad.
Yeah. Conventions no longer hold any interest for me anymore. Yeah, it's because, well, you know what? To be fair, it's not the conventions. If they had actual topics and discussed things kind of deeper than just TV shows, I'd be all about them.
There's a great cartoon, great comic. I don't know if you've seen it, CL, where it's two people at a convention, each at a table. One has this massive line. The other one has nobody in line. The one with massive line is, I played an astronaut on television, and the one that had nobody in line said, real astronaut, been in space. And I feel like that there is something to that. And I'm not trying to suggest that paranormal investigators who are putting in the real work and stuff, that there should be a line out the door to talk to them. But I think it shows that there is a misbalance in what people, I think it really goes to show what people really think paranormal is by the fact that they're hanging their hats. They're being paranormal investigators in the same way that they see people doing it on television or YouTube. I think that's a better way of saying it now. YouTube, Destination Fear, and all that stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of that. I think that's a big thing. And to your earlier question, that's what you have to change. You have to change people from seeing paranormal that way, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's kind of, after a while, you just kind of hit your head against the wall with this stuff because you just see, and then the backbiting that's come out of it. There's a couple of celebrities out there who, that's all they do is backbite for money.
Yeah.
And just to give you an idea, there's a Paracon. Should I even dare say his name?
I
let's move into a different conversation here. So,
that's
because it'll bring this back up again. All of a sudden, you have all these celebrities buying up haunted properties everywhere, right? So is that the new way of how they're going to make money? Is that what they're thinking? Or are we actually buying it to historically preserve this place? Because I tell you what, there's two places that I can think of right now that really need preserved historically. They have great historical significance. Nothing's being done to preserve these places. One of them is Waverly. You've got somebody that bought it dirt cheap and they've been sitting on it and making money from, and you know what? And people might get mad at me for saying this, but they're sitting on it, making money off of tours and things like that. But how much of that's actually going back into that property? Have you been to Waverly lately? It's not looking great. I've
actually never been to Waverly at all. Yeah. Funny enough. Yeah.
There's another one here, not too far from Vegas, over in Armagosa Valley. It's Death Valley Junction, and that's the Armagosa Opera House.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, so that place is in a terrible state. It's going to end up being condemned because the property owner died. She was very old, and this board came in, and they're controlling, they don't want ghost hunters there anymore because of something Zach Bagans did to them, which I can see that. Yeah. But what's happening is they don't want anybody in the door to do anything. The board controls everything. They want to make money off of a music venue there. But let's be honest, no music is going out to Death Valley because there's no restaurants or anything like that. That's not happening. So that's been failing. There's no money being placed back. This is the important part. No money is being placed back into that property. And it's just crumbling. The walls are made from adobe, and we've had some pretty significant rain out here recently, and the walls are just melting.
I bet.
That building. The back, there's a back building to that, which they call the Spooky Hollow. The roof actually collapsed on it just recently. So that's how bad of a state. We're going to lose that property, and it has so much historical significance, not because of the opera lady, but because of the miners and Death Valley Junction and the railroad and all of the stuff that happened there.
Yeah.
So what do you say about these people buying up these properties?
Well, and I kind of had a soapbox moment on Friday when I did when I did my show, and that was talking about the people buying stuff. And first of all, as I always say, do what you want to do with your money, right? If you want to put money into the Conjuring House, that's fine. But here's the thing. Every state has multiple locations that are open to the public that you're miles away, maybe a couple hours away. It's certainly not cross country like Conjuring would be for me. And if you're going to put money into Conjuring, could you please put money into these local locations as well? Pick one that you really like and get a tour there, to just do a donation, just help out, because those are the places that don't have a Jason Haas that is like using his star power to get people to buy a house for him. And that's the way I see it. Yeah. I still struggle, and people are going to, people have told me, and close friends of ours have told me how wrong I am to even question that this is weird. And I still struggle with how you get a call from Andrea Perrin, and that hey, can you save the Conjuring house for me? Sure, I'm going to go ahead and put try to raise $1.7 million or whatever it is to buy this house just like that, and then I'm going to work with people that I have publicly harassed, and I understand that owner also did not treat her workers well, so it's just a big paranormal drama anyway. But I'm gonna now work with her and do some back deal with her to get the house. Meanwhile, her sister is being like, wait, no, that doesn't work because she is not of sound mind. And then you have the state. They didn't block it per se, but they're not letting it go through right now. And there are 3 separate lawsuits going on. It's a mess. What point is this really important to do? I'm missing it. And people are like, but it's so historic. It is? I mean, it's old. It's old. It's from the 1700s. I like that. But, if you're coming from a haunted angle, and I always say, read Shannon Bradley Byers' book, which is, I think, called Paranormal Nevermore. And what she does is that she breaks down a lot of these locations that tell the truth, not the TV truth, not the truth of somebody who is exploiting a location, but a truth about stuff. And she's, telling the truth about the Conjuring house, that Bathsheba actually never was a witch, and she's the villain of that piece. She's the villain of all that. And imagine, and I said this Friday night, I said, imagine, CL, imagine that you just had a decent life and you pass away, and, 100 years later, somebody wants to make an area that you lived in like a destination, and they create this nasty story around you because they can find your historic records. They make a nasty story, though, that you're a witch, and you've done nothing, but the world sees you very differently. I think that's horrible.
That is a really horrible story. That's a horrible legacy.
It is. And, I know she's going to be, if Andrea heard this, she would be screaming at me because you weren't there. But the research had been done.
Right.
So, and that's the other thing is like people are going to scream at you to keep that legacy that they started going. I kind of go off track here, but I have my friend who runs the Calumet Hotel in Pipestone, Minnesota, and that was a magnificent place to investigate. And the city pushed in on her and tried to get the property away from her, basically because they wanted it for themselves. They had another deal in the making, even though she owned it. And part of it too was because she's a woman, they didn't want her having that property. And it's still they put the muscle to her so badly that she owns the property still, but it's not allowed to be opened. And she's been fighting tooth and nail for years because she believes that this is worth fighting for. Meanwhile, you have Jason Haas basically just saying, "Send me money because I tell you so." And if I'm making people mad by saying that, that's fine. But think about it. Think about that. That all he really said was, "I say that we need to save this," and you get $150,000-$200,000 of money within a month. And meanwhile, Tammy in Pipestone, Minnesota, she can't keep her dream alive because people are squeezing her out of it in the city that she lives in, and there's nobody to help her. And that's even lawyers are having such a hard time. Those are the perspectives I think people need to understand.
Another thing that's going on with that too, though, is that some of these owners of these properties, when the celebrities do come in there and say that they're doing a fundraiser or whatever to raise money that's supposed to preserve that property, a lot of times all that money goes right back into the celebrity's pocket to pay for fees.
It has happened, but I do want to talk about, and since Jeremy is in the chat, he'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Over in Salina, Kansas, him and I were part of. I talk about the Vegas convention being a load of crap, This was more fun, but it was so poorly organized at this big Masonic lodge. And basically, you had people running it thinking that everybody else was going to do the advertising, not them. And so the whole weekend, we had maybe 20 people come in the entire weekend. And we had, as a guest, Mustafa from Ghost Hunters. He's now on, forget the name of the program that him and Brandon Elvis do.
I know what you're talking about.
And he gave his fee directly to the location because they didn't get the fee that they were promised from the organization, from the people putting on the convention. So I do want to just kind of that there are good ones out there, that they do exist.
It is far in between though, because I've heard some other stories. There's another celebrity. I don't even know if I want to say his name, but he was out there talking about he couldn't pay his light bills and all this just last year, and all of a sudden he owns property now. What's going to happen when you have to cool that property down in the winter or in the summertime? Or is he going to be begging for money again? Is the money going to go back into his pocket, or is it actually going to preserve this place? These are questions that I have about this.
And I don't doubt for a second that there are plenty of them out there. And you just said it, and Tracy in the comments are saying it. I see, good ones are few and far between, and that's a shame. And I think people who are seeing your favorite paranormal celebrities doing constant GoFundMes and stuff, you really have to ask yourself, especially if you're seeing that they're doing a GoFundMe, but they're still doing conventions every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You have to ask yourself, well, why is that not good enough? Why is that
going to Ireland? Going to Ireland is another one.
Absolutely. Why is that stuff not? You gotta kind of do the math, if you will. Well, if they're doing something every weekend and they're taking these big trips, or there's pictures of them at rock concerts and stuff like that, why do they need a GoFundMe? Maybe that's not the right way to go. Maybe I'm being harsh, but I just feel like that those are things to kind of really think about, because once again, I think what people don't think about is the power that some of these people have. And people who are donating to some of these paracelebs, I think they really think that doing so they become friends. That's what they're thinking is happening, that they're becoming friends with them. And make no mistake, there is a separation. They're not friends.
Even if you go to an event, they're not your friend. They're not your friend.
Absolutely. And it's just one of those things that, once again, do what you want with your money. I'm not in control of your budget, but you do want to be able to just really think things through, because no matter what, they're going to recognize you at events. Sure, that's fine. But if they're not reaching out to you to just see how you're doing, want to catch up, or if they're at an event and you're not in the pictures that they're posting, they're only posting pictures with other celebrities, I guarantee you're not their friend.
If they're not liking your stuff on Instagram and all that, I'm not saying that, you don't have to like every last post you make, but if you have a big project, I'll put this out there. If you have a big project and they're not liking that project at least once, or, recognizing it, they're not your friend.
No. And I've had a number of people on my show that have been on the shows and stuff like that. I have never given the thought that because they were on my show that must mean that we're all friends. This is business.
Yeah.
And that's what it is for them. And I think I'm being generous with some of them when I'm saying it's business. It's taking advantage of other people. Let's call it what it is.
It is.
And folks, once again, do what you want with your money, but just stop and think about it, because I know for a fact, right? We know this for a fact, that there's people making very good money, not working, but living off of your donations.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who I've even had one come out and say it. it would cheapen his brand if he went and got a job. And he's one of the ones out there right now starving. You know, he's always asking for money from people. At what point do you just not stop? Just stop. Change direction. Do something else.
Let's put it this way: my brand is pretty cheap, if that's what it is.
Yeah, I got I got to give it to Dustin Perry. He's out there working. At least he's got a full-time job. Yeah,
he does.
A lot of these guys, he does that on the weekends, and people like Tim Shaw, or they're retired. This isn't a full-time gig for them. It's different.
Yeah. No, it is different, and and that's just it. There's people out there who are making the legitimate ones look bad, because you start putting them all in the same bucket. You just can't, you can't help it, to me, it goes back to, we used to have these big paranormal conventions in Monoman, Minnesota at the Shooting Star Casino, and I think this is where the prices got so extraordinary for paracelebrities, because it was a casino and they were paying huge amounts of money. And there was one guy who was managing all of the big celebrities, except for like some of the ghost hunters and ghost adventure guys. And he'd been doing this for like 7 years. He was retiring from doing it. He was not old, but he was retiring from doing it. And the convention came and went. And a couple days later, these paracelebrities are reaching out to the casino, and they're like, "Where's my money? I never got paid. Where's my money?" And they were like, "We paid your handler. We gave him a big $250,000 check to pay all the celebrities. He took it and ran." He took it all and ran. Yeah, isn't that something? They caught up with him. It wasn't pretty, but he took it and he ran. And but I think that those conventions probably were what made the paracelebrities back in the day feel like that they should be getting, $12,000 to $15,000 per appearance, that sort of thing. I know with Grant, you can't even promote an event until you have at least paid $8,000, and that locked him in.
For who?
Grant Wilson from Ghost Hunters.
Well, he's another one that hasn't been on. Okay, I know this sounds mean, but do the young YouTubers even know who he is? You're
saying he's a wash-up, is what you're saying.
No, I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying, if you haven't been on TV it's kind of like Vegas. We have these residencies here, and usually when you have a residency, it means that you're kind of on your step out.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens. That's just what happens in music world. It's unfortunate, but there's this little window where you peak and then you start to fall, and that's when they start doing these residencies and things like that. I mean, I would think that Wilson is pretty far peaked out,
And to be fair, that was a few years ago, so it might be different now. But the thing is, it's weird. Some of those people, the crowd still wants to see in some form. If it's like the Wraith Chasers, maybe not so much. But if it's still some of the OGs like Grant, I think there's still something there per se. But it's amazing. I got to stop naming people too. But it's amazing how you get these people who think that they're still relevant, and they're not, quite honestly.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. Ghost Hunters, Grant's been on that for what, 10 years or more? I don't even know how long that show's run. I know it's a long time.
Too long? No, I don't know.
But then you got other shows like 28 Days Haunted, and some of the guys, that was their one and done show, and they're still living like they're some kind of Class A celebrity or something.
Well, I mean, and that's the other side of it as well. You also, you get that they think that they're living large. You get some of these places, and I can think of two of them off the top of my head that are, they're crowdsourced paranormal television, right? Where they are, they have a network, and that they put out paranormal shows on these networks, and some of them are pretty good. It's like you're putting in way too much work for something like this for getting $5 a month payback. But they all think that they are on the same level as some of these big celebrities. And I think what's unfortunate about that is I am pretty sure they're not given the true numbers of how many people are actually watching them. And I think they'd be a little saddened by how many people are actually watching, how many subscribers these services actually have.
I'd be interested to know what the subscriber is, how many subscribers some of them have. I mean, Paraflix has been out how long?
Yeah.
At least 5-6 years now. Like I just kind of wonder how they are still, not saying that it's a bad network, but I don't know a lot of people that subscribe to that one. So how do they survive?
Well, and that's what I'm getting at is, you got a lot of people who say that this is, a big, you get a lot of people who like to say what's a big deal and what's not a big deal. But it's always down to the numbers. I can't tell you how many people tell me that they have, 150, 200,000 listeners to their show. And it's like, I can check that. And unfortunately, you're not even near the number. So you have a lot of people bloating numbers and stuff. And I do worry about the people who are making content. And I'm not necessarily sure they're getting the accurate numbers. And they may not care. They just might like making stuff. But at the same time, I remember one guy, he was doing a show for them, and it hadn't even aired yet. And he was going to do a paranormal convention. He had a picture of all these like photographs of him with his logo ready to sell autographs for. And his show hadn't even been on Paraflix. And quite frankly, I don't know why anyone, and no offense to anybody, but this is the sort of like buildup of people that it just kind of frustrates me, because it's cool that you are capturing your investigations on camera, but it doesn't make you a star. It certainly doesn't instantaneously make you a star. Right. There needs to be some realistic kind of thought here, I think, that is missing in a lot of these situations.
It's kind of like everyone's living in some kind of dreamland or something, where they all think they're they all think they're Elvis or something of the paranormal world. And we've only got one of those, and that's Zach Bagans. And that's only because he's the first one that's done a lot of this. Totally.
I mean, trust me, no one is trying to convince me that GhostBox Radio is coast to coast. There is no one that's putting, trying to even get to that part. But yet these people, I don't even think it's necessarily the providers. I think it's the content makers who suddenly think that this is where they're at. And I do wonder too about something like Beacon. I mean, it'd be interesting to know how many people have subscribed to that. And I know those numbers will never get out, because like, how can you afford doing like the, Holzer Files Part 2, I mean, it's just, is that really going to, is it a risk, or can they actually do it?
Especially when the funding for it is all crowdfunding.
It's
self-supporting.
No, it is. And that's the thing that I don't like. I see King Sisters talk about the self-promotion has become unbearable, and I agree. And I actually try not to self-promote, and that's why no one knows who the hell I am, because I can't. It just grosses me out to be like,
It's very hard to, because I have this issue, right? I have several books out. A lot of people that listen to the show don't even know that, because I don't promote that much.
Yeah.
I do promote the magazine, but I separate myself from that. It's a different entity. It's very hard to promote yourself. Like, I always feel weird doing it. But then you got guys out there who, for instance, one of these Paracons, there's a guy out there who, all he does is he breaks into buildings basically and films the inside of them, right?
Yeah.
And so he's at one of these Paracons, and he's got a tent blasting music to the point where you can't even talk to anyone around that booth. It's just obnoxious. I mean, at what point, that's the self-promoting for me is when it becomes that kind of a level.
Absolutely. And that you can't have a conversation with them without them dropping their name. And there's one guy who came up to me in St. Cloud, Minnesota here. I did this paranormal get together sort of thing. I had a table there, and it was very nice. It was well done, put on by my friend Russ, and some guy comes up to me, and it was the first 2 minutes he had told me that he had worked with Patty Negri, and he named like 3 other people in like that, are, a lot of people would know in the field. And it was just like, I literally said to him, why are you telling me this? Like, why do you? And I said, do you think I'm going to be impressed? Because I've been in this a lot longer than you have. And that sort of thing is actually the opposite of what you're hoping it will do. It might impress some, but it's not going to impress me. I'm so tired of that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, just kind of cowered away, slithered away,
He slithered away. Greg, we're at the bottom of the hour. But for listeners out there, I'm going to be on Greg's show in about an hour. Greg, where can I find it?
Yeah, go ahead at 10:05 p.m. Central Standard Time, GhostBox Radio. If you want to stream it on AM950Radio.com. Otherwise, go to GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun on Facebook. We have a video stream that you can see our pretty faces again, or YouTube at MN GhostBox Official. And it's going to be fun. We're going to be talking actually about haunted Las Vegas, which I'm excited about.
It's going to be exciting. My favorite topic ever.
So you don't have to worry about me, slamming on everybody there. That was just this hour, Look,
it's not that I dislike any. Well,
yeah,
there might be a few. There might be a few that's really kind of pushed my buttons lately, but I don't hate these people. But just from, the journalistic side of it, looking at the big picture of what's really going on out there, be careful who you follow, guys.
Yep.
That's all I'm going to say about it.
Yep.
So, Greg, thank you so much for being on the show. I'll definitely have you back in probably a month or two.
I'd love to. Thank you for having me.
As the story unfolds with Conjuring House and all of that, we can continue our saga. Stay tuned. Thank you. You've been listening to the Gateway broadcast from United Public Radio 107.7 FM New Orleans. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I'll be back next week at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Please catch me I forgot who my guest is. It's somebody exciting, though. So thank you for listening, and until next time.